Hey guys, I'm going to be telling another story. This is going to be a different kind of story. This is going to be a Reddit story about this time this guy got abducted. Alright, this is posted 10 years ago. There could be other people that reacted to this video. But with that, I hope you guys have a great day and let's get into it. The first time I ever tried to write this down. First time telling anyone else in my family. I'm leaving time and location and some other details because I'm scared of what might happen with it publicly, I guess. Summer before 8th grade, me and two of my friends snuck out at midnight to go on a walk around the neighborhood and go see these girls on the next block who were having a sleepover. We turn a corner in our neighborhood and there's this huge black blimp shaped thing in the sky, like the picture of the Hindenburg, but bigger than that, and as close is not closer. If you guys don't know what the Hindenburg is, it's a giant blimp. Anyway, completely silent and the size of at least 4 to 5 football fields across. No exaggeration. Even though I was young, we stare at it entrance, asking each other over and over and over if we see it, which we all agree that we do. Standing there frozen in one place. It's like a black, polished gunmetal. No lights, no sound, no anything. It's just hovered there. And then, I don't know what happened, but time clearly jumps. Next thing I remember is a craft slash ship slash government experience or whatever the hell it is has gone. And there's a tiny glowing white barbell thing in the sky, seemingly slowly falling to the earth, which wisps of smoke coming off it. The two brand new black trucks with the silver gearboxes in the back, like F-150s or S-10s, but nicer, came speeding down the street going about 70 in a residential 25-mile-per-hour neighborhood. Then after that, I remember walking home to one of my friend's houses and going to bed. At that point, it was about 5 or 6 a.m., and the sun was coming up. We all made a promise to tell my dad in the morning, because he worked for the city, but we never did. I don't know what happened later in life to one of my friends who was there, but the other was my best friend. We sort of made an unspoken pact never to talk about it. Don't know how or why we did that. We all grew up, and I sort of lost touch with him too. We did reconnect over Facebook and such over the years, but it was like there was something between us neither of us wanted to touch or talk about. Looking back on it now, there's no way we could have been the only ones to see it. It wasn't that late at night, and it was over a heavily populated suburb of a major city. The city of this has always scared me more than any sort of possible abduction scenario. That there were others and were voluntary suffering, a sort of collective amnesia, except in how we're not. I've thought about hypnosis, but that scares me too. Plus, I'm not sure if I trust the results. I was just a kid, and I'm not sure if I could trust the hypnosis. What I do know again is that there's no way it was just the three of us who saw it. We're talking about this thing hovering in the sky, directly above hundreds of houses, just after midnight on a summer weekend night. But nothing on the news, nothing in the paper, nothing on TV, no words spoken about it ever again. This is a true story. I'm a little bit older than the average around here. I think I know what the creepypasta and stuff like that is. This happened, and there's no way I'm the only one who remembers it. Thanks for letting me get that off my chest. Woo. Like I said, there might have been another YouTuber that said this, but who cares, right? It's all about the storytelling. My mom tells a story of her and her friend. Let's call her friend Lisa. When my mom and Lisa were teenagers, they were up on the roof of Lisa's house, and they see a bright light in the sky. Next thing they know, the light is gone. Thing is, they think they've been on the roof for like 15 minutes, but something like 3 hours passed. My mom doesn't remember anything about what happened during that time, and Lisa simply refuses to talk about it. She would answer my mom with things like, I don't know, and just drop it for a long time. So, a couple of months later, Mom moves away and loses contact with Lisa for about 10 years. She finally meets up with her again and immediately notices that something is odd about Lisa. Lisa appears very distant to her, with a very dreamy demeanor, like she was really happy and at peace, for no good reason. After that, she talks for a bit, brings up the incident on the roof. Mom says she still doesn't really remember anything about it. She acted like there was a lobotomy or something. But Lisa remembers. She remembers everything. She said at first it was all in little bits and pieces. She couldn't remember any of it clearly. She was confused, scared, and wanted to avoid discussing it. Then, as time passed, she began to remember more of it. She remembered it all clearly. She remembered the other 3 times she was abducted. After that, clearly as well. At first, they were paralyzed. Somehow, and all sorts of invasive experiments on her. But by the time they stopped probing her and began to talk with her, they didn't speak English or any other human language. But they could understand everything they said, even though she can't speak their language herself. Apparently, they told her all sorts of things, stuff about space, Earth itself, and most shockingly predicted years beforehand that she would get pregnant, a specific year, and it would also be a stillborn, and that she would never be able to have children again. They also told her that it was not her fault, and they even made an attempt to save her from that fate, but they were unsuccessful. Listen, dog, if you got aliens probing you but trying to help you out, I don't know who you'd call if it's intergalactic grape, or if you call the FBI. I don't even know what you would do. And if this is an actual real person, this thing happened, I feel terrible because you can't talk to anybody because they're like, oh, there's no way. We don't believe you. But also have a stillborn on the same year that they did that. I mean, come on. Yeah, they told you. You already knew what was going to happen. You talked to them, blah, 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 blah. I don't know why you would try to do it that year when you could try a different year. Especially after they tell you that you have a stillborn. But I mean, at least they stopped accident pregnancies. They told her that they had abducted my mother another time. After that first incident, Mom says he has no recollection of any potential abductions. She does have a recurring nightmare of being abducted, but she's almost sure that they're just that nightmares. Anyway, Lisa tells my mom every time she speaks with them, she comes to understand the truth more and more. When Mom inquires what the truth is, Lisa says, "You will know eventually." And she that once, oh my gosh, I'm sorry, they did a terrible job spelling this. Everything become wonderful. Mom has seen her a few more times over the years. We still live in another state from her, and she apparently has a pretty normal life and doesn't like to obsess over alien stuff. I like to suppose alien abductees too. She only brings it up when passing, and not like an essential part of her life. I'll be honest, I don't know if that's necessarily true, but if this stuff can't happen to you, if you got probed by aliens, I am very sorry. I got a couple more stories. Okay, these are all exactly 10 years ago. 1997, Colorado Springs, Colorado. I don't know why I said it twice. I was 8 years old playing in the sand volleyball court at the park, down the street from my house. I was engrossed in my activity, burying my collection of Happy Meal toys in the sand and then digging them back out repeat. I was looking down, but decided suddenly that I needed to look up because the world around me had lost all sound. There was no longer any ambient noise, no traffic noise from the busy streets just a block over, no more dogs barking, no more birds chirping. I looked at the street bordering the park, and then I saw it. It looked like a stealth bomber turned sideways, nose leading, one wing down towards the road and the other pointing up at the sky. Completely shiny, black in color, as tall as a house, shaped like an arrowhead. It was cruising the street at 3 miles per hour, just gliding over the road. I watched it maybe 20 seconds. As soon as it had passed me, some 2-story house, and out of the sight, I got my hearing back full force. I ran home with piss-soaked pants and never spoke a word of it to anybody. So, if this is true, I'm sorry that you peed your pants. But like I said, or actually not like I said, but obviously there's a lot of DMT released in a young boy's mind, and most people won't believe an 8-year-old, especially because they have such a delusional state of mind. Not just because of how young they are, but they have a more DMT released in their mind than most people do when they're older, and also their imagination could just run wild. But this other person said saw it too. Okay, I'm shitting my pants. I know a lot of people are cracking jokes about this, but in 1997, I lived in a monument, Colorado, 20 miles north of Colorado Springs. I saw this too, except it was a sky in the sky. Now I lived right across from the Air Force Academy, so I was used to planes going over my head, but this black arrowhead-shaped object was moving far too slow to be any type of Air Force plane. Both my mom and I watched it inch across the sky for about 30 seconds. Literally, this thing was moving freakishly slow. I have no idea how it was able to stay aloft before either of us threw the grab of a camera. By the time we got back outside, it was gone. To this day, it still brings a memory of chills. Alright, I'll be honest, maybe this actually did happen, but it was probably a government thing, to be completely utterly honest. Right, they said it was by an Air Force Academy. Okay, so we all know Area 51 and all this stuff. They have a million bajillion things that we don't know about. They probably got flying saucers in there. They got whatever. Alright, World War III breaks out, dog. The Foo Fighters are coming back and are gonna destroy whoever we're fighting. Alright, two more. But also, I'm surprised that there aren't more alien sightings. I'm guessing it has to do with the government, because there's no way that aliens aren't showing up, especially with the Russian war, or I guess Russian and Ukraine war. I was in a wildfire just south of Dugway, providing ground in Utah. We were in the fire rings, driving to the incident area, 4 trucks and a close convoy, when we heard helicopters, 8 black military choppers escorting us. Information. For 10 miles. We assumed that they were just doing drills and using us for fake target practice or something. A little while later, we were parked and about to start hiking to the fire line, when suddenly a thin column of smoke shoots probably about 200 feet into the sky. It was a good mile away, but the concussion was pretty significant. When it hit us, and the noise was still ridiculously loud, we thought it was probably no big deal. We knew we were near a strike zone. A good 5 minutes later, an aircraft like nothing I've ever seen blew past us, maybe 500 feet. It was flat black and sort of rectangular, but with fins. And on the underside, it was moving pretty slow, and it was dead silent. So I assume it was some sort of stealth glider. It sounds ridiculous, but it immediately reminded me of the huge flying Batmobile, Tim Burton era. After that, some military personnel got on our radio frequency and instructed us to leave the area immediately. When our crew chief asked who it was and why they signed off, and the incident commander, the guy in charge of managing the entire situation, came on the radios and said we were evacuating the area. They sent us to a completely different fire about 100 miles to the south and never told us why, except that it was higher priority, which was bullshit. It was already out when we got there, and we assisted crews in the mop of operation. The thing that confuses me about it, this is an army. Didn't want us to see what the shit was going on, and it was so dangerous. Why didn't they keep us clear of the area in the first place? Either communications break down, or they had a lot of shit going down and had to get us out without warning. I know, that didn't sound very good, but here's the last story. I can't say for sure what happened to me that night, but here's what I know. I was driving home on the weekend from school at Indiana University. It takes me about 2 hours to get home, and I left Bloomington around 10 p.m., exactly 10:53 a.m., on a rural stretch of 2-lane highways. I take home and I notice what appear to be flashing lights behind me. I thought, great, I'm getting pulled over. So I turned on to the next country road about a quarter mile, where I noticed the lights. As the car came to a stop, and I noticed above my glove box to get out my registration and proof of insurance, the lights suddenly disappeared and no car drove past. Now, here is where the story takes a turn for the weird, and I'm sure you guys will think I'm just making it all up, because it really doesn't seem like anything, or it seems like something straight out of a typical UFO movie or story. The electronics in my car started going haywire. The radio started randomly changing stations while the volume kept going up and down. The dome lights and the headlights started to flicker, turn off and back on. This was about 10:56 p.m. I started myself that my battery just must be failing, or else I have a short somewhere in the electrical system. So I lean down to pop the hood so I can take a look at my battery, and that is the last thing I remember doing. The next thing I know, I open my eyes and there's nothing but the night sky, full of bright stars. It was a cold night, and it seemed like I had never seen stars that bright in my life. I sat up, looked around, and I saw absolutely nothing, nothing at all. I was in the middle of a field, surrounded by corn, left over from the recent harvest. As I started to come to my senses, I started to freak out. Where am I? Why the hell am I here? Why was I asleep in the middle of a field? Where the hell is my car? I got up and started walking towards its distant headlights. I could see from a road about a half mile away. As I walked that long stretch, I finally got into my car. I closed my hood, and I just freaked out the whole entire drive back to where I was going. I would not stop anytime, anywhere until I got to my destination. I had to pee so bad. I grabbed the next Gatorade bottle next to me. I grabbed it, I peed in it, and I kept on going. I wasn't going to stop until I got to my final destination. Okay, here's the actual last one, alright? It's a little bit of a longer one. I'm going to stretch this out a little bit. Alright, I haven't been posting a lot, but here we go. Okay, here it goes. The first time I'd ever seen anything, I was 7 in Houston, Texas. I used to like to climb on top of my mom's suburban in the driveway and stare at the stars. One night I saw this intensely bright floating light over the tree line, probably about half a mile away. I hollered, but nobody came to see it. I did not see anything else until March of 2008. This experience happened between the 10th and the 15th, but I can't give a specific date because I was up for 4 days trying to come up with an explanation to satisfy what I'd seen. This is the Tuscaloosa, I don't know how to pronounce that, Alabama, my mother lived in. A garden home community, all houses the same, all one story, and you had great visibility distance-wise. I walked out of my buddy's place exactly 4 a.m. to a bright starry night. When I walked out, something caught my eye. To the left of me, I looked over and saw bright blue / yellow, green, white, red, orange, strobing, flashing light floating silently to the left. I stood in awe at it and did not want to grab anyone because I didn't want to miss anything. I watched it as it passed in front of me, the moon behind my friend's place, and I saw the outline of the craft. It was a teardrop sunflower seed type shape, and the craft seemed to have the light being transmitted from the top half of it. It was almost as if it was transmitted some type of light pattern upward. It also had a dark, thin, smooth line of exhaust disappearing 50 to 75 feet behind it. It all occurred in no less than 400 yards away from me. After it passed the moon, I ran inside and grabbed someone, but it was too far away to make out what it was. I'm gonna be honest, guys, if you ever seen Alien, take a picture and walk inside. Alright, if you ever see a UFO, because all these stories about people getting touched by alien diddlers, or I guess kitty diddlers that are aliens, alright, little R. Kellys, it's always because they stay outside and they always see them multiple times, which might be because of schizophrenia, but you never know, alright? I walked out to I went home, which was about only a few blocks away, and looked over the driveway, the same direction the craft had come from. I saw 2 dim white lights slowly coming up the horizon at a slow pace heading towards me. I then ran inside, grabbed my mother out of the bed. We stood there for about 20 minutes while 5 separate crafts flew above us. First came 2, then 1, about 6 to 7 minutes apart from each other, maybe 20 miles per hour, maybe 200 feet up, completely silent. The way that they looked from underneath was each one had 2 huge bright white lights that were about 30-40 feet across each. But they were so bright it was hard to not get a good estimate. They also had a pulsating red one between the white lights and dim and relit. I would estimate the size of the white lights each craft maybe between 150 to 200 feet wide. The last craft that flew over us flew over it lower and slower than the first 4 had. Then it made a noise. It let out a sound to this day haunts me. What I could best compare it to would be the sound, and he sends a link, Follow immediately after by this sound. He sent another link. I'm not gonna click the link because I really don't want to get scammed, and I really don't want to have to get a new computer. That's the best I could find. Take those two sounds, except make it digitally, multiply it by 50. This was loud. The craft that twice these flew directed over us, and I believe that the sound was an acknowledgement. Whatever was piloting it knew I was watching it, kind of like a hello. I immediately started crying. I had no idea what I was looking at or had just heard. The second big experience I had occurred a couple weeks later. I was standing in my driveway smoking a cigarette, listening to my iPod somewhere around 2 a.m. I decided to pause my iPod to turn on the backlight, waved my hand over a couple of times and make somewhat of a strobing pattern. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything come up, but I got the idea of being watched feeling. I looked up, and directly above me in a trapezoid-shaped craft with rounded edges that had a dark red-black pulsating glowing light outline. It was like flowing electricity. It was not even 75 feet up. I could have hit this thing with a rock. I stood there while it hovered directly above me, completely silent for maybe 10 to 15 seconds, which could be hours if you listen to all other stories, while it made this kind of motion similar to the ball that Luke trained with in Star Wars. It hovered side to side, front to back, smooth motion, never getting more than 20 feet away from the original position. It was extremely fascinating, but I was frozen stiff. After those few seconds, I waved one hand at it in a friendly manner. It then changed light patterns and hovered away behind my house. Upon deeper inspection, the fact that it knew that I saw it but made no effort to evade my detection made me think it wanted me to follow it, although I was too freaked out to think about it that time. I have seen the same craft on 3 different occasions, once again in Tuscaloosa, once in Hoover, and once in Bessemer. The time I saw it in Hoover was an apartment complex at the top of a huge hill with a great overlook. It was nighttime and I was with my friends. Over the overlook, I saw a gray craft facing my direction that looked similar into a Hoth fighter. Forgive me for the Star Wars reference. And as soon as I saw it, it took off to the right. Silently, extremely quick, the times in Bessemer and Tuscaloosa, the trapezoid shape appeared in the sky, solid, white, stretched to twice its length, and then the bottom shot up to the front. It hit light speed or something. I do frequently see what I like to call streaks. They look like shooting stars, only very low. They move very slow, but they still have tails, and they stream behind them. They also appear in many different locations. One strange story is, one night I had a dream in Tuscaloosa. In the dream, I couldn't see or hear anything, but I could feel things. I was laying on something cold, and I felt that seemed like rubber between my legs, around my junk. It was very strange to me, since a lot of people who report abductions report sperm and eggs being taken for breeding programs. The next morning, I went to let the dog out in the backyard, which is very small. To the left of me, which is the patio, there was a solid white ring in the grass that was maybe 8 to 10 feet wide. I showed my mother, and she had told me that she heard noises that woke her up last night, but she just dismissed it. Another extremely confusing experience I had occurred in my driveway in Tuscaloosa. Thought this guy just needs to move, alright? If you're getting, touched by this many aliens, jeez. Tuscaloosa. To give you an idea of where this occurred, look up the Shelton State Community College. I'll show a picture if I remember. The house was less than a quarter mile from the campus in Inglewood. I guess that's where Danny Duncan is too. It was nighttime, and I heard the static that I could compare to a jet. I looked over directly above the community college. Was a light blue slit in the sky. I would say it was maybe 200 yards long, completely vertical, and had that looked like white electric currents coming off both sides of it. I looked at it. Maybe about 25 white rings shot out of the slit to the left, and at one time I paced, leaving the trail behind it. that I previously talked about. After they passed, the bottom of the slit went upwards and until the slit closed, and it made a strange noise, and it was gone. Alright, this guy really needs to move. I've also had a bunch of experiences with orbs. Some solid lit that float across the sky, move in strange patterns, and some that brighten up into great density and then fade as they pass. After the big experience, I started doing some research. I was confused. I understand that I've had abnormal large amount of experiences, and I honestly can't tell you why. I wish I could. More than likely, this guy has schizophrenia. I'm gonna be honest. Alright? I'm not putting a diss to this guy and his whole entire life, but I'm pretty sure this guy has schizophrenia. Alright, if you're getting abducted and you're having all these bad things happen to you in the same exact area and only you can see it, if that thing is that big and it's filling the sky and only you can see it, then more than likely it's just you. I found it. I'm not saying that your experiences aren't true, and I'm not saying your experiences aren't your truth. Alright, there's a truth and there's your truth, alright? And the individual's truth. This is probably the individual's truth. It probably feels like it happened to him, but in everybody else, it really didn't happen. None of this stuff's real. But to him, it is. I found a type of UFO witness called a contactee. These people are similar to abductees, except they are kept up with. I have no idea why I have had so many experiences. I have only listened to a fraction of them. But my best guess would be that since I acknowledged the presence or whatever, I was seeing. It decided to keep up with me. It kind of a gift or a curse. There are so few people that I can talk about it with and to be taken seriously. I want to seek hypnotherapy to see if there might be anything else I can uncover. I'm grateful, but still don't know much about my experiences. If y'all can get anything out of this, what I shared was great. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Alright, this guy's probably schizophrenic. Alright, with that, I know it's a little longer video, but I hope you're having a great day. I enjoy reading these, and
Yeah. My dad used to say, whatever is whatever. Never may be never, but it's ever that keeps us.